pushing yourself to build a scalable business that is systemized and processed.
Today we have Cam Jones, founder and director of Spark Futbol. Welcome, Cam.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm excited, mate. Tell me about your business.
Yeah, well, Spark Futbol is a still relatively new brand. We're a football academy methodology and program based in Sydney for junior and youth players. We specialise on building the individual player for the team game. So we are sort of sitting a little bit outside the box in terms of what traditional coaching looks like in football, and looking to invest into that next generation of players, young girls and young boys, future Matildas, future Socceroos.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, what does that investment look like? Like, how does the program work in general?
Yep. Look, we have a number of most of what we do is on ground, and we'll train the players. We take a holistic view to their development, and that'll be then delivered in different ways based on the age and based on the stage of the player as well along that journey. Most of the players we work with can be as young as 6 and up to 16 and beyond. Um, and a lot of it will be on ground in that capacity, and then the nuances of how we train them will change based on like I said, the age and the stage. But we also work quite a lot in the online space as well, particularly around mindset and supporting the players to get that mindset. I played at a professional level myself, and I understand to make it in the game, and it's the same with business as well, you have to have a certain mindset to be successful, to be able to cut through, to be able to deal with the knocks and everything else. So, we do a lot online as well in supporting them also.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good. And how did you get into it? How did you get started?
Like I said, been involved in the game for many, many years. I won't say how many years. Played through an elite youth level, and went on and played professionally, and aligned. Most of my professional career was actually part-time professional, and so was fortunate enough to start a corporate career and have 14 years or so in that space. Under both the Packer and the Lowy regimes as well. So I learned a lot in that space there, and then it all sort of came to. I started to get into a lot of coaching once I retired from the game at a professional level, and then all the worlds aligned in terms of business and passion point of football, and that becoming a full time opportunity. To I guess feed into both of those skill sets and experiences, and really just to have that passion at the center of it.
Yeah, I like that. And so, then where do you think that Spark Football can bring the most value to the marketplace?
Um, I think we're fundamentally different to anything else that's out there, and I think that is a critical piece to what we do. If we're not here to be more of the same, there's enough registered football players in this country. It's the biggest participant sport in Australia. I think it's over 2 million now players registered, and there's no point just setting up an academy to be another club or to replace the club system or whatever it might be. We are here to serve the same person, the same kid, the same family, but in a very specific way that is not really provided in my experience and through our research in certainly in New South Wales and Sydney much at all, which is developing that individual. So that's really where hopefully the rubber hits the road with us, and where we can really support and help our families and our kids.
Yeah, that's great. And so, with having a really solid on the ground presence, how has COVID affected you?
Yeah, significantly. Wiped us out pretty much. So, in terms of the traditional on the ground stuff, obviously you can't train when there's a lockdown. We could do some one on ones and some two on ones, but and that's been great to help a lot of players in that respect. But most of all, in terms of business operation, yeah, we've been wiped out. But I guess how's that affected me in us in a positive way would be it's really helped us
Yeah.
to really think about what the future holds and think about um, what the foundations are inside what we do for the future. And that's given us a lot of thrust forward to be a lot more forward thinking with what we're planning and building. In that space so that yeah, in the future when it happens we can sort of transition. Obviously online is the obvious one, and how we can support players because it's a knowledge base and an expertise that we're ultimately delivering, and there's different ways that you can do that online. So that's certainly something that we're looking closely at moving into the future. So I guess if anything it has helped us to reset and rethink and hopefully evolve into continue our evolution into something new. Which at the center of Spark, our DNA is constant evolution, and that's critical in football development. No matter what, the game was different 10 years ago versus what it is today versus 20 years ago. So if you're not evolving in what you do, you won't last. It's the Nokia example in business, yeah, when they were sitting on top of the tree, thought everything was merry, and next week. Drops the iPhone, or the iPod, or the iPhone was the clincher for them, and they're wiped out, right? So it's constant evolution in what we do, is really important. So it's really helped us to be directionally aligned on that thought process through this period.
Yeah, I love that. And so, could you give us one or two insights that have kind of given you sort of the biggest and most dramatic growth for your business?
During COVID, or just in general?
Overall,
Yeah.
overall,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, Look, I think the biggest thing for me is in this world, we have got everything as business owners, as entrepreneurs. We've got everything at our fingertips now. The Having worked in corporate, it's a real eye opener because I worked in the generation of the early 2000s, for the next decade and a half, and the world was so different when I started. And sales calls were on the phone, and you'd record everything, and it was I think fax machines were even still around then. It was so different. Now today, you've literally got the every capacity that a big corporate business had, sitting inside your phone. Whether that be getting a virtual assistant through an app like Upwork, or whether that be getting your social media content curated and built through also the same sort of system by finding someone in. I work with a content producer in Romania who I've never met, who I know I can send stuff to, and they can just reproduce content. So I think that the big thing for me is that the power has shifted in business from the corporate to the entrepreneur, and I think that's why we're seeing a revolution of of what work looks like for human beings now. And I think we have got so much more power as an entrepreneur than what an entrepreneur would have had 20 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. And in fact, not just so much more power, that it's uh, perhaps more, because you're more agile and you have got more ability to move quickly, see what needs to be done, cost effectively implement it, and move quicker than a big corporate will ever be able to do. And I think that's probably the biggest learning, and why we've had very quick success in what we do, because we've been able to be agile and tactile and strategic with what we do, and build from that.
Yeah, that's really good. And so, COVID aside, like, because pretty much every business, well, most businesses have had taken a hit through that period. What's been the most challenging part of growing for you?
Uh, look, you know, I think when you are building from more or less, despite my experience in the game and history in the game, when you're building a from scratch, um, the load and the workload is unrelent is relentless, you know, and I think that's always the biggest challenge for me personally. I'm a competitive person, and I want to always do more. So I think the challenge in all of that is how do you align and prioritize well to allow for quick growth and get assets in place quickly so that you're a systemized business as quickly as possible. That's, you know, so almost essentially it's a mental challenge of not just getting on the tools, preventing yourself from getting on the tools, and pushing yourself to build a scalable business that is systemized and processed and repeatable through the infrastructure and the assets that you build inside it.
Yeah, that is excellent advice. What advice would you give to, a business owner or CEO who wants to break through to their next level?
I think it'd be different advice for a CEO and a business owner. A CEO of a corporate, I would be saying, how can you how can you infiltrate the entrepreneurial world, and not just put it on a corporate DNA. This is who we are, cultural sheet, but actually really push yourself to think and get yourself in the mindset of an entrepreneur, because the power is there. And I know from my time at say at Westfield, where I was previously in the corporate world, if I knew what I knew now in that space, we could have advanced things forward so much quicker. But I just didn't know it because I wasn't an entrepreneur, I wasn't a small business owner. I just had the mindset of a corporate. Um, so my advice to a CEO in that space would be to really get into the space and the headspace of an entrepreneur, small business owner. Of course, if you're a small business owner and you're the CEO as well, my advice would be to invest into self learning and development, and that has been the key for me. I've worked with a business partner that has fundamentally changed everything that I do, and help me build the business that we have today. If I didn't have them in my corner, and if I hadn't taken the plunge on investing into that, it wouldn't have happened. So it pays back x-fold if you're willing to put the work in and have the right advisors around you. Yeah, the outcome is going to be there for you.
Yeah, that is good. Thanks, Cam. And finally, who can you best help? And if they want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, sure. Our website's obviously the natural best point of contact. We worked hard on actually building a strong website that should cover most of who we are, what we do inside of that. So sparkfootball.com is the best point of contact, and then the contact directly through that is obviously on there. Anyone can always reach out to us at head office at sparkfootball.com and contact us if they have kids who are looking to develop, or even if they are involved in clubs. I know a lot of business people who are volunteers and on boards and involved in local clubs and social clubs and whatever else. So yeah, we're here for the game and for the people inside of that, and there's a lot of people involved in football. So in whatever capacity that is, they could reach out to us on that. And obviously, if they just want good content and they want to stay engaged with what we do or see what we do, our Instagram and Facebook gets some good traction actually. So they could follow us on that as well.
Yeah, fantastic, Cam. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate the insights that you brought.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cam.